Good afternoon and welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Daryl DeLuca. I'm Assistant Dean of Students at Boston University. We are coming to you live from Boston University's Charles River campus on the banks of the Charles River for our Parents Program radio broadcast edition December 2017. I'm joined by my co-host, Christy Loring.
Thank you, Daryl. Christy Loring, the Associate Director of the Parents Program. Indeed, it is December. It's hard to believe. And all of our hallways and study areas are filled to the brim.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Next week, Tuesday, I believe, is the last day of classes on this academic semester. So as Christy pointed out, lounges and study spaces and dining halls are filled with stressed out students.
They are. You can tell that they're preparing presentations, practicing, studying final papers, the lot. So they're in the final push. So parents and family members, they most likely will be coming home to you very soon, but they've got a lot to do before then. So if you're thinking about sending some encouraging text messages, encouraging emails,
cookies,
goodie bag, cookies,
tea,
tea, coffees.
Once you send all that, as your cherubs, sons and daughters and sons come home, be prepared for loads of dirty laundry.
For sure. Another thing that we think you should be prepared for is when your son or daughter comes home, that they may well say, Mom, Dad, I think I have a great plan for next year, and that is I'm going to save you a ton of money, and I'm going to move off campus and live with a bunch of my friends. Doesn't that sound great? Exactly. And that is why we have Kim Santo, who is the Assistant Director of Judicial Affairs and Off-Campus Services. So, Kim, welcome back to the Parents Radio Show.
Thank you for welcoming me back. Always happy to be here.
It's great to have you back.
Give us a quick overview, because I know, as Christy pointed out, a lot of students will come home and use this intersession break as an opportunity to discuss with mom and dad whether they are going to be a rising sophomore, a rising junior, or a rising senior. Mom and Dad, I've been really thinking that all my friends are moving off campus, and I would like to move off campus and secure independent living accommodations, because I can save you a ton of money and I can be on my own, and I think it's the best for both of us. So we want to prepare and prep up parents for some things to consider. So just off the top of your head, what are the kind of things that parents should discuss with their sons and daughters?
Well, I know one of the biggest arguments that a student will make is, I'm going to be saving you a lot of money, saving the whole family a lot of money. And, I've heard from some students that they do save some money from month to month, but it's not as great of a savings as you think it would be. I would argue if this was 20 years ago, sure, I would definitely buy into that argument, because that was the case. But I mean, nowadays, between utilities, and then you have to worry about having some sort of a part-time job to pay for the rent, and then you're worrying about getting from the apartment to classes. There's a lot of inconveniences that are going to present themselves that you don't have when you're living here on campus. So to me, any sort of money that you might be saving, it's not worth it in the long run.
Can you elaborate on those inconveniences, or AKA amenities, that maybe BU offers as a residential student?
Oh, absolutely.
That you don't have off campus, or you have to pay for them?
Sure. So most students don't have a car, so you're probably going to have to invest in a Charlie card or a T-Pass. That would be $84.50 per month. If you do have a car, you need to make sure that you're able to park it at your off-campus apartment. Case in point, if your student decides to live someplace like Brookline. Brookline is just south of the BU campus. In fact, it takes in part of BU's South Campus residential neighborhood. There's no overnight street parking in Brookline, so you have to make sure that the house or the apartment has either a garage or a driveway that you can put your car in. And then if you're living in Austin Brighton, which is very popular with our undergraduate students, you can go to the city of Boston and get a free parking permit, but that permit does not guarantee you a space. It just gives you the ability to find a space in Austin and Brighton. So there's some challenges that I think a lot of students don't necessarily think about when they want to go off campus.
Now, to be fair, Brookline, Alston, Brighton, parts of the Back Bay, Fenway. Some of those locations are within walking distance.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Or on the BU shuttle bus.
Sure.
But not all of them.
Sure, sure. And you can find some hidden gems in those neighborhoods, especially in the Fenway neighborhood. But, again, to me, I just don't think with the cost savings, for example, another good example is, let's say you have a maintenance issue, a busted pipe, heating's not being turned on in a timely fashion, something like that. When you're living on campus, you're a landlord as Boston University. So you can call the emergency facilities hotline, 353-2105. You can contact your resident assistant, and it will get taken care of in a timely fashion. I'm not knocking off campus property owners, but sometimes things can't get taken care of as quickly as students would like. So again, that's another convenience that you have here by staying on the campus.
And you might have what they call an absentee landlord,
Exactly.
someone who lives in a different part of the country,
Exactly.
Whom you might call several times before you receive any action on the problem at hand.
Exactly, exactly. And they'll have a property management company that is looking after their buildings, but sometimes you might not know, well, technically I should call the property management company because there's a delay if I contact the landlord who's out of state, who then has to contact the property management. There's a whole chain that has to go.
And again, to be fair, not all off-campus rental property is created equal. Exactly. There are new accommodations and a lot of high rises. Yeah. Of course, you're going to pay for those amenities. There are also some brownstones and some triple deckers and single family homes that have been used for student housing for eons, right? Decades.
Yep.
Some are well kept up and some are not.
Exactly. And you pay for that. So the beautiful high rises here in the Fenway Kenmore neighborhood, they come with a very high price tag. Versus, as Dean DeLuca was just saying, you have some of the old brownstones that are around Park Drive going towards, the Fens, the Back Bay Fens, the beautiful gardens there. The rent will be a little bit lower, but those buildings are older, so you have to take into account, if I'm on the first floor or the second floor, are there any rodent problems? Have they ever had any flooding issues? Pipes. There's a lot of things you need to take into account when you're doing your search.
You may be carrying your couch up to the fifth
There might be no
floor.
elevator. Exactly. So I hope you have a lot of strong friends that can help you move in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that does make you think of, as a parent, you also worry about your son or daughter's safety.
Yes.
And not to jump ahead, but what are the kinds of things that if you are looking for an off-campus apartment, you want to be aware of and mindful of?
Sure.
And what should you expect? What is the law?
Sure. So, by law, you should have, let's start with fire safety, because I know going into the winter months, and I just came from a meeting where we were talking about fire safety. You need to have 2 forms of egress by law. So besides the front door, there should be either, if you're on an upper level, a fire escape or a fire ladder, some way to get out your window, or another set of stairs going down the back. So by law, there has to be 2 means of egress. Also, there needs to be smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors that are functioning, and that is the responsibility of the landlord. It's not the responsibility of the student. That needs to be in place. Depending upon the age of the building, there may or may not have to be a fire sprinkling system. Some of the older buildings, they're grandfathered in, so they don't have to have sprinkling systems installed. Okay. And then in terms of just general safety for security, you want to have your lock should be changed when you move in, and you might be assessed a lock change fee. That's pretty standard. It's about $100. So front door lock, or if it's card swipe access, and then your individual bedroom should have a separate lock as well. Yeah. And then if you're on a first floor unit, and if you're in a garden level or a basement unit, there should be security bars on the windows. Again, it's just as a theft deterrent.
Have we had experiences with fires off campus?
Unfortunately, we have. What comes to mind is the fire that happened, where was that, in the North End a couple of weeks ago. It didn't involve BU students, not the BU community, but that was the first fatality fire that we had in Boston this year. And I don't remember the specifics, what caused the fire.
I believe it was smoking material.
Yeah.
It was left unattended.
Right, okay. And I know that the folks that live there, they tried to put the fire out themselves, and one of them had perished. And the meeting that I just came from with fire department, they were talking about, it's great if you have a fire extinguisher and you feel confident in your ability to use a fire extinguisher. But honestly, if there's a fire in your unit, the only thing you should be worried about is getting out. Fire alarm, if you could pull the fire alarm, evacuate the whole building. Don't try to be a firefighter. That's not your job.
Get out and call 911.
Exactly.
Now, I know that when parents are going to have these conversations with moms and dads about whether we should put down a housing deposit to participate in the spring 2018 lottery system. Boston University houses almost 80% of our undergraduates on campus, and that's over 4 years, and we still guarantee student housing for all 4 years, which is a great plus. There are not too many urban residential campuses that do that, so I look at that as a great attribute to Boston University.
Absolutely.
to stay on campus. But should a student convince mom or dad that that is the way to go, rising sophomore, junior, senior, is there any assistance either from the university or the city of Boston in terms of some sort of an inspectional services area that we can sort of have a checklist?
Sure. So City of Boston Inspectional Services Department, if you go to their website, they do have a checklist, and we also maintain it in my office as well. So off-campus services is housed within Judicial Affairs, and we are located at 19 Deerfield Street on the 3rd floor. So don't be scared if you're coming to Judicial Affairs. You can come for off-campus services. And we have a fantastic website. That was an info card that Christy was just holding up. And the checklist that we have provided by the city, it walks you through questions that you should be asking the realtor if you go through a real estate company, a licensed realtor, while you're looking for your apartment, or if you're working directly with the landlord, things that you should know to be an informed renter before you actually sign the lease. And it's also really helpful for the parents to have this information, because parents, be forewarned, you're going to be asked to be co-signers on the lease. So, and that's a pretty standard requirement that all landlords want to have a co-signer on the lease.
So when you're talking about co-signing a lease, it reminds me of all of the things that perhaps students don't always think about in terms of how much money is it actually going to cost? How much money are you going to actually need to put up front to move off campus?
I'm glad you asked that. So I broke down just an example of some financials here. So let's say your students are looking at a 2-bedroom apartment in Austin, Brighton. And the rent is going for $2,345. It's a really nice 2-bedroom apartment. So for 2 people, you split that in half, you're looking at $1,172.50 per student. Okay, fine. That doesn't take into all the utilities that aren't included. I'm not going to get into that. But the fees that would be due at signing, and this is standard and legal, a security deposit, which can be as much as 1 month's rent, first month's rent, last month's rent, and then if you went through a licensed broker, they want to be paid for their services, so they can charge as high as 1 month's rent. So you're looking at 4 months worth of rent. If you take that $2,345 total rent that I said, times it by 4, you get $9,380
before you move in.
Before you move in, and when you split that per person for the 2 students, that's $4,690 per student up front when you go to sign the lease.
And all things being equal, Boston is a very expensive city, as most parents know. Housing is equally expensive and continues to keep going up and up and up. So those prices, that $2,300 a month for a 2-bedroom, I think is a pretty reasonable accommodation. They're generally, I think, more than that, but you know better than I do.
Yes, they are. I mean, this is a figure that I'm quoting from last December, from last year. But what students will do is, I mean, one, to cut down on costs, you want to have a roommate. In some cases, let's say that this 2-bedroom apartment, maybe one of the roommates has a boyfriend or girlfriend that's going to live in there, so they'll split it 3 ways to cut down. So the more roommates you have, in theory, you're going to be paying less rent, but then you get into some safety concerns, because then there's overcrowding of houses. And the city of Boston, which takes in Austin and Brighton and the Fenway neighborhoods, has a no more than 4 city ordinance. So basically, no more than 4 undergraduate students can live together in one housing unit. Now, if it's a full house, like let's say a triple-decker in Austin or Brighton, if it's licensed as a boarding house or a rooming house, then you can sort of get around that ordinance. But if it's an apartment, like a standalone apartment, you can't have more than 4 undergrads living together.
Kim, you went to Boston University, and you've been here for a long time.
Yes, I have.
So what are the neighborhoods that most Boston University students look at to consider securing off-campus housing accommodations? Just walk us through the...
Sure. So the most popular one is going to be Alston. Alston is just west of West Campus. It's probably the closest to that end of the campus.
It actually annexes, right?
Right, exactly. Alston Village, Alston itself. And then Brighton is further west and a little bit south, and that's going to take in also parts of Boston College. You have the mix of BC students and BU students up there. So that's primarily BC, but BU tends to be in Alston. That's the first stop. You tend to find the least expensive rents, but I also find a little bit more safety issues in terms of the way that the houses and the apartments are maintained. Another popular neighborhood would be Brookline, which takes in parts of BU South Campus. It actually runs parallel to Commonwealth Avenue, if you think about it. There's also, and Brookline, just, you know, the town of Brookline is different from the city of Boston. You have the independent town of Brookline and then city of Boston. So staying within Boston, Alston.
Brookline, best known for the birthplace of President John
Oh my
F. Kennedy.
goodness, yes, on Beale Street. That's right. And just a fantastic eateries, restaurants. I mean, it's a very quaint neighborhood. You have a lot of faculty that also live over in Brookline. It's very popular with our graduate students because there's more of that, I guess, more like a mature feel about it in Brookline. It tends to be quieter, more adults, very family oriented. Where Alston and Brighton, you have a lot of the underground. Not going to lie here, on the weekends, the activity can be a little bit high in terms of, you know, noise levels and parties and gatherings and things like that. Not that we're deterring people from having gatherings, but, you know, to party responsibly. So what I say, Alston, Brighton, Brookline, and then you have right over here the Fenway neighborhood, Kenmore Square. You have parts of the Back Bay, which is part of the city of Boston.
And boy, has that changed recently.
Oh my gosh.
Fenway, Kenmore.
Yeah, I mean, it's beautiful now. You have a lot of these high rises that are mixed with a lot of the older brownstones. So it's quite the cosmopolitan neighborhood to live in. And all of this is within walking distance of the Charles River campus. Yeah.
I want to go back to one thing you talked about in terms of the whole deposit and the finder's fee, etc. We have had cases, and you can jump in when you want. We've had cases of students on their own, either through Craigslist, eBay is not a good example, but one of those places on online where students search for an apartment on their own, find what they think is a dwelling, and are requested to wire money to a complete stranger, and that stranger or that person or a unit or apartment does not exist. Talk about a little bit about that, because I know you're very familiar.
Yeah, and this is a scam that tends to hit our international population more so than our domestic students. It's really a shame. And these scam artists, they're brilliant. They'll find somebody's real name, Daryl DeLuca. Daryl DeLuca is posted on Craigslist that he has beautiful Back Bay that's only going for $1,500. What a bargain! Riverview, and there's an elevator in the building. Oh my goodness! So all you have to do is wire me the money. Let's say, you know, security deposit first, last fee, all of that up front. Wire it overseas. Oh, let me fax you a copy of the lease. The lease looks legitimate. There's photographs of. Oh my God! Everything looks perfect and it looks legitimate. Student wires money over. Flies over here, comes to move in, finds the address. The address even exists, the building exists, but then they find that the unit is not available or the house is not available. Well, who is this Daryl DeLuca? Daryl DeLuca is an assistant dean of students at Boston University. You find Daryl DeLuca, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't own any property in Back Bay. Completely fabricated. Well, I just wired money over. How do I get it back? You can't. When you wire money over, it's essentially the same as handing over cash. It's very hard to trace. We still encourage students to file a police report because then they can follow up with Craigslist, but you're probably not going to get that money back. And it breaks my heart because there'll be a couple of these cases that come into my office late August, early September, and now they're frantic. And this is the first time they've come to Boston. Welcome to Boston. You've been scammed. So I try to work with them and try to find them a place to live as quickly as I can. But unfortunately, I can't get the money back.
Very well said. And I'm glad that you called it a scam, because that's exactly what it is. It's a scam. And not only have students become victims of this awful crime, but we have had parents victims, faculty and staff victims, because they're new to Boston and they think it's legit and okay. And that $6, $7, $8, $9, $10,000 after it's wired, as Kim pointed out, is gone. You might as well left it on a park bench and walked away.
Yeah, and what's interesting too is some of these scam artists, they'll also use names of legitimate real estate companies. So you really need to know what you're looking at. And I always advise students to stay away from websites like Craigslist. And I highly recommend that they use our website, BU Off Campus. So it's offcampus.bu.edu. All of the listings are posted by known quantities to us and also to the website maintenance company, Off Campus Partners. They have to pay to list on our website. They have to take out a special package to list on our website. So these are folks that they're not going to be scamming students because it's a legitimate property. Exactly, they're invested. They want to have bodies in their apartments.
So the takeaway message is, although it may cost a little bit more money to find a reputable broker, real estate agent, management company, it is well worth the investment.
Exactly. And you do have some landlords that are not licensed brokers that are not going to charge an extra fee. They post on our website as well, but they still have to pay to list on our website. Yeah.
It's good to know. So, Kim, if your son or daughter is interested in moving off campus and they want to move in for September, when do they look for an apartment?
They needed to have started yesterday. Yeah. It's never too soon to start looking for September 2018. And what I've heard through the grapevine from some other agents is that the market tends to get hot, usually around now, and now January, February, it keeps shifting. The sooner you can start looking, the better. And, if you go to our website, you're probably not going to find a lot of September 1, 2018 listings posted just yet. But you're going to find a lot of current listings. And quite frankly, if it's posted by a real estate agency, I would reach out to that company and say, hey, I noticed you have a property listed. The move-in date is January 1. I'm not going to be looking until September 1. I'd like to work with you. What other properties do you represent? Do you have any other openings that will be popping up that I should keep an eye on?
That's great advice. And what advice would you give to someone who is in need of a roommate, really wants to move off campus but can't do it by themselves?
And they don't know anybody, a lot of times students, when they're so drawn off campus, they are going with a group of friends. That's point number one. But if you're doing this, I don't want to say blindly, but you're really doing this on your own, but you can't afford it on your own. We do have a roommate profile section on our website. So you can create a roommate profile. And what's great about it is that not only will it be viewable to the BU community, but you have the option to have it viewable to our partner institutions. So there's a consortium that Off-Campus Partners manages. So they manage the BU Off-Campus website, the BC website, Northeastern, Suffolk, MIT, Harvard, Emerson, the BAC, which is the Boston Architectural College. So there's this whole consortium that you can have your profile visible to, so that your roommate doesn't have to be another BU student. Expand your horizons. You might want to live with a Northeastern student.
Absolutely. So, Kim, to use your services, is there a fee for this website?
Nope. Students, faculty, staff are eligible to use it for free. They just need their BU login and password. So there'll be your email address and the password associated with that. If, as a parent, you wanted to check out the website, you can create a guest account using your own private, if you have Gmail or Hotmail, whatever your email is. And the guest account will be good for, I believe it's 30 days. And if you want to have it renewed, you can always contact the website provider to get the account renewed. Yeah. The only thing with a guest account, you won't have access to the roommate section. We had that set up as a security precaution.
That's
only students can look at that. Yeah.
Right.
Kim, talk to us a little bit about, I don't think a lot of parents or prospective students who are looking at off-campus accommodations realize or factor in their head when they're about to sign on the dotted line or make the decision to move off campus, that generally these apartments come completely empty.
Right.
I mean, other than kitchen appliances, there is not a stitch of furniture in it. There's not a light bulb.
A plate, a fork, a knife.
Exactly. So talk a little bit about the things that students need to factor in when they decide to move off campus in terms of all that stuff. Where does it come from? How does it get in there? And where does the food come from in my refrigerator that I have to eat dinner with every night?
See, these are other costs you don't think about.
Right.
So having that part-time job to pay for not only the rent, but also groceries. And also,
you mean it's not doesn't come with it?
It doesn't come with a meal plan. It doesn't come with a meal plan.
There's optional ones available.
There are.
Yes.
There are. You have to pay extra for that.
Should we mention it doesn't come with Wi-Fi?
It does not come
Or
with
utilities,
Wi-Fi,
or hot water.
electricity, a cable. So heat and hot water usually are standard that they will be included unless in the lease it's built into the lease that your particular unit is on a separate water meter. So if each unit is on a separate water meter, then that means the tenants are responsible for the water. But on the whole, it's included in the lease. But electricity you have to factor in. I mean, electricity could be, let's say, $80 a month for this. Again, this is going on the 2-person apartment. So $40 per person.
Depends upon how bad the winter is.
That's a good point.
Exactly. Cable, internet, depending upon what kind of service provider you have, might be $50 a person. Food and groceries, you might be looking at $150, and this is a week. Transportation, as I said, $84.50 for a T-Pass. You also have to factor in gas if you have a car.
And parking.
And parking, you have to worry about parking, or if you want to get a daytime parking permit here for the BU campus, that's going to cost you as well. You can't just park here for free. And also, it doesn't guarantee you a parking space here on the campus. You have to, it just gives you permission to look for a space, and then it's only a space that's tied to that particular color permit. So all these things you have to think about. I think what else?
You mentioned Wi-Fi?
Wi-Fi, well, Wi-Fi with the cable and the internet, yep. All these other things that students don't think about.
Another thing, Kim, that I think students often forget is when they're thinking about moving off campus, they're thinking from September to May.
Thank you, yeah.
That's when they, are going to use or need their apartment for Boston University. What happens come May when they're ready to move back home and they don't need their apartment anymore?
They're still responsible for the rent.
Say that again.
They are still responsible for the rent for all of May, June, July, and August.
Okay.
So that's another standard here in the city of Boston, and pretty much any other city in the U.S. 12-month leases. Whether it starts September 1, October 1st, it's going to go for 12 months.
And in this city, it's September 1.
Yeah, it's very popular.
Large.
Yep, September 1 through August 31st. So what you need to look for in the lease, this is what I was thinking of, thank you, Christy. What you should have built into the lease is a sublet or a sublease clause, where the landlord, with their permission, will allow you to sublet your apartment for the time that you're not going to be there. And what that basically means is you would be able to advertise your apartment, and you can post your apartment as sublease on our website. You can post that for free.
Okay.
Or, the landlord, if maybe they know some other students that were looking, they're welcome to advertise that there will be a temporary vacancy, a sublet. But you want to make sure that that's built into the lease, because not every landlord allows it. Don't always assume, I'll just be able to leave, and my buddy's just going to take my space. No problem, because you just want to worry about getting paid. Well, that's part of it. A landlord wants to be making, collecting their rent, but they want to know who's living in their unit as well. So that's why it's important to have that built in and make sure that you have that open communication with the landlord, and that's something that you get upfront before you sign anything, before you hand over any money.
So it's an excellent piece that you both brought up. If that sublet component is not in the lease, in other words, this apartment is not sublettable, the student, your son and daughter, are responsible for that unit, whether they live there or not.
Correct.
Legally.
Correct. Yeah, a lease is a legal binding contract. It's something you really need to take seriously. And that's why parents, if you end up being the co-signer, what that entails is if any of the tenants default, they can't make rent, falls on you. Yep. And it just takes one set of parents. It's not each tenant needs a co-signer. It's just one set of parents that will be the co-signer for all the occupants. Yeah.
That's a really
scary.
Really good point that you raised. The other question, what if you're having trouble with your landlord? He or she is not getting a problem in the apartment fixed. Can you withhold rent until that problem is fixed?
That's one of the drastic measures. You could, but then the rent that you're withholding needs to be put into an account that you have to pretend as if you were going to be paying the rent, so that once the problem is resolved, you owe the landlord back all that money.
Like an escrow account.
Oh yeah, absolutely, escrow account. It kind of similar to the landlord when they collect your security deposit. That's supposed to go into an escrow account, and they have to give you a copy of a receipt as proof, because when you move out, if you don't want to live in that apartment anymore, you're due the money, all the security deposit plus any interest that it collected, unless the landlord can prove that you caused such significant damage to the apartment that then he or she gets to keep the deposit. But I'm sidetracking here. So yeah, withholding the rent is an extreme measure.
What are the other kinds of measures that you might take if you're experiencing some kind of problem?
There's another measure called repair and deduct, where let's say you decide to take it upon yourself. I know how to, I can sweat a pipe. I know what I'm doing here. So you fix it yourself, or you hire, you have your dad come that, knows a little bit about plumbing, and they repair it. But any sort of cost associated with the materials, save the bills, and then you might be able to charge the landlord, basically bill the landlord accordingly. Some landlords are okay with that, some are not. My humble advice is to have a very open line of communication with your landlord, and keep a chain of emails. If email is your preferred method of communicating, phone conversations that you had, just to say, look, December 6th, I reported this problem. This is the first time I reported the problem. It's now December 15th. The problem has not been resolved. Okay, now it's January 1st. The problem still hasn't been resolved. I really need this problem fixed, so that then if, for some reason, if you have to go to a small claims court, at least you'll have documentation that proves, you know what, I tried working with the landlord, but they weren't willing to work with me. So that's why I withheld the rent, or that's why I decided to break the lease, which that's another drastic measure. Or the repair and deduct. Look, I took care of the problem. I just want to be reimbursed for my efforts. Yeah.
How easy it is, you mentioned break the lease. How easy is it to break a lease and just say, forget about this off-campus unit. I'm going to move back on campus. That sounds like an easy way to resolve all my problems.
Yeah.
Talk to us about that.
Again, going back to the lease being a legal binding contract. Oh, you can physically move out. The landlord can't stop you, but they can take you to court. They can take you to court.
You have to keep paying.
You have to keep paying.
That's part A. Part B, you're probably not going to find a place open on campus, because we generally run at nearly or close to 100% capacity.
Yeah. So once you move off, it's very hard. It's not impossible, but it is very improbable that you would be able to get back on campus. So that's nothing to keep in mind. Forget about the cost. Forget about the condition of the building. If you ever want to come back on, you might not be able to.
You're sort of at the end of the list, aren't you?
Yeah, you really are.
What that really means is that our first priority is to house undergraduate students, as long as the condition is you have a continued stay on campus. You can pick your same room or other locations on campus. Once you move off campus, you forfeit that sort of condition, if you will, as an undergraduate student, to be able to maintain continuous on-campus housing.
Exactly. So there's the residence license agreement, and then there's the deadline to submit the housing guarantee payment with the residence license agreement, and that's in February 2018. It's
Perfect
usually
timing. Let's talk about that.
Yes. So I forget the date, but it's always one of the last few days of February that all of this is due.
So I confirmed it from housing that February 28th by 5 p.m. is the deadline to submit your residence license agreement and the $600 non-refundable housing guarantee payment.
So what that'll do is that will secure you a space in the housing system. And what'll happen is mid-March, the students start to receive the room selection number via email. And it's based on a lottery system. So students who participate in the same room selection, it's a little bit different. They receive their time slots when they can pull in students to open spaces in their room. So same room, as it just suggests, I'm happy in my particular dorm room in Warren Towers. I want to stay here, but I want to pull in a friend. That's how it works. Versus, I believe it's still referred to as community selection. If I want to go outside of Warren Towers, you're issued a lottery number, and it depends on your class year and then your lottery number within the class year. And it's totally random. And let's say I want to try and move into Killeshawn Hall. I want to try and move into 10 Buick Street, again, depending upon my class year. And then I want to pull in some friends. Naturally, the more popular buildings, such as 10 Buick Street, 33 Harry Gandis Way, affectionately referred to as Stoopy 1 and Stoopy 2 by our students, those get scooped up very, very quickly. Yeah, so it's almost like you have to know someone who knows someone with a really good lottery number to get in there. But what we do is, knowing that, you know, your student might be thinking about moving off campus, knowing that you have this deadline on February 28th, we host an off-campus housing fair in early February. And this year, it's technically going to be mid-February. We're going to be hosting our fair on Valentine's Day.
Aww.
We want you to fall in love with off-campus housing, but maybe not too much in love. Yes, because we'd like you to stay on campus. But February 14th from 4 to 6 p.m. in the GSU back court, we will be having our fair, and the fair will host about 25 to 30 realtors where we welcome them onto the campus, and you can talk with them, get some more information, schedule some tours of properties. We'll also have some experts from inspectional services from the city of Boston, Boston Police. So you can, you know, once you talk with a realtor, you can go over to ISD, inspectional services, and say, hey, you know, before I go on a tour with this person over here, what sort of questions should I have? Do you have a checklist? What are some things I need to be concerned about?
Great advice.
And we'll also have environmental health and safety there, and they'll talk about fire safety. So it's fantastic. It's free to the entire BU community. We will have chocolate and some other goodies because it's Valentine's Day. So we hope that you can make it. Yes,
absolutely.
I'm gonna remind folks again with parents that deadline is February 28th at 5 p.m. So it's right prior to spring break 2018. Prior to that, both students and parents, I'm certain of this, will receive an electronic mail message from the Office of Housing as a reminder that the deadline is approaching, again, on February 28th, 2018 at 5 p.m. for that non-refundable deposit. And if you miss that deadline, again, it is very difficult.
I'm cringing.
Don't
miss it.
Every year we have parents and students say, I was not aware of it. And once the deadline passes, it's like the IRS. It's like the taxes. You cannot get back on.
No.
So even if you're considering, not certain, but considering moving off campus, it might be good to put down a deposit, which gives you sort of a backup plan. Even though it's non-refundable, I realize that, to secure your on-campus housing, and then should you find something, then you can move off. But once you miss that, it's hard to get back in.
Right. It's very good advice.
Yes.
Very good advice.
Excellent. Let's see, what else?
So I like to tell this story. If your son or daughter comes home during winter break and is very determined to move off campus, and you're, you know, really worried about this possibility. I had this one mom give this great example. She said to her son, okay, when you get back to campus, I want you to go to the train station and take the train out to your apartment. See how long it will take you. He said, oh yeah, Mom, sure, no problem. I'll do that. That sounds great. I've got this. Just so happens that the day he's going to do that, it's pouring rain. So he stands on Commonwealth Avenue and he waits for the train. It finally comes. Gets off the train, walks to his apartment, looks at it, turns around, walks back to the train, waits on Commonwealth Avenue for the train, and finally gets back to campus, calls his mom, said, you know what? I think I'm going to stay on campus next year. I'm all set. I don't have to move off at all. So just to think about some of those very practical things.
Thanks, Mother Nature.
The weather, right? Shoveling. Your landlord should do the shoveling.
Right, but sometimes it doesn't always work out. If you have a car and you're going to drive back to campus, you have to go about shoveling your car out and then hoping you can find parking on campus. And then the train is a great example. As we all know, there can be significant delays when there's inclement weather, especially with snow. So you have to take all those into account. And you might say, well, I'll just walk. Okay, sure, I'm all in favor of walking, but if you're living all the way up border of Alston and Brighton and you're going to try and walk back to campus here, that's a schlep. That's really far.
Particularly if it's raining.
Oh,
snowing,
and you have your book bag.
And while Boston University does a great job with snow removal on Boston University Charles River campus property, the city of Boston sometimes, those sidewalks are not clean at 7, 8, and o'clock in the morning.
They do what they can. They really do.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of sidewalks and a lot of city streets they have to try shoveling. And then if people didn't heed the snow emergency, meaning getting their vehicles off of street parking, it's harder for the plows to come through and do their job. And you can usually tell where the line of demarcation is between the BU Charles River campus and where it's the city of Boston, because
Or the town of Brookline.
Or the town of Brookline. Spotless, snow all over the place.
It's so true.
The other thing I would encourage our students to think about is if you don't really want to vacuum your dorm room, if you haven't changed your sheets maybe more than once or twice a semester, do you really want to think about cleaning an entire apartment, the kitchen, the bathroom, etc.? So, and then the other thing is groceries. If you're buying all your food and you're going to a grocery store, you are very well likely taking all those bags on the train back to your apartment. So there are a number of logistical things to think about in addition to the money. It is very convenient and safe and practical to be here on campus.
Exactly. And I understand you can make the argument, we're all adults here at the table. We all have full-time jobs. And yes, you have to worry about schlepping groceries and driving here and over there. We all do that. But we're also not full-time students. I think you really need to take into account you're here for your education, you're here for an internship, you're here for things that are not necessarily part of the real world outside of BU just yet. So you have to think about, do I want to now add in that whole real world component on top of being a full-time student?
Yes, that's a great point. Your primary focus should be your education.
Which is why Boston University makes it so easy and provides a wonderful food service and operations and logistics. Even when the universities are closed, we still have to feed 12,000 undergraduates on campus every day. So the dining halls are open, oftentimes the food court's open, the fitness and recreation center is open. So those are the kind of things that factor in. But while we're talking about food, what do most people do? Most is one of those words that you can use one way or the other. But what do students do that live off campus? I'm sure it runs the gamut about food.
Ramen noodles.
Oh no.
Ramen noodles. It's become gourmet now. Ramen noodles.
Yes, it has. Yeah. Because you can add to it.
You can exactly. You can add.
Isn't there are optional meal plans and points that you can purchase so that some of that stuff you can eat on campus. But the backup is save money, go grocery shopping, schlep it home, taxi, train, Uber, prepare it, cook it, eat it, consume it, and then clean up.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And you want to keep your apartment clean because going back to maintenance of certain buildings or the age of certain buildings off campus, there might be a pre-existing rodent or roach problem. And the cleaner you keep your unit, the less likely you're going to have that infestation come into your home. It's when you're leaving the dirty dishes out or the food you cooked from the night before, the pizza boxes are still sitting out on the kitchen counter. You might find a couple of furry friends that visit you, or roaches, or videographers going, no.
We're not talking about cats and dogs.
No.
Other furry friends.
Yes. Especially first floor units and garden level basement units. I mean, I've heard of it happening, on the top floor, fourth floor unit, but it's they tend to be on the lower level. So you really need to be tidy, is my point. And the minute that you have an infestation, make sure you report it to your landlord, or if you have a number for exterminator, immediately. Here on the campus, we don't have tons of those problems, but again, we do have extermination in place, and they can take care of it very, very quickly. So when you go off campus, you're rolling the dice. You're hoping that it'll be taken care of, and that the first time they come and they treat it will actually treat the whole problem, that they don't come back in. Yeah.
I know Boston University and you and your team work very closely with Inspectional Services Division and City of Boston representatives and Boston Police or Brookline Police during the August-September move-in and move-out date.
Yes.
And are those resources available to students where they could actually get an opportunity to see the unit before they rent it, or do a walkthrough, or to inspect it in advance before I sign and have my parents sign $3,000, $4,000 a month unit?
Yeah. So what the realtor or what the property owner landlord might do is, even if the unit is currently occupied, they're supposed to notify the current tenants and say, hey, I'm going to do an apartment showing. usually 24 to 40 hours notice, so that then you as the prospective tenant, you can go and take a look at it. If for some reason, and this is really popular with international students, if you can't physically visit an apartment, there is a fantastic service, and it's linked on our website. It's called Squeakly. It's a funny naming service, but Squeakly, if you go to our website, there'll be a link to it. They will actually do a full investigation of the apartment. And there's 3 different level packages that you can pay for. And I think the most expensive one is it's $79. And you think, oh, it's a lot of money. It's for peace of mind, though. They will take a full video walkthrough as if you were there, photographs. They'll let you know how much sunlight it gets, what the temperature is. They'll talk with neighbors. What's the history of the neighborhood, the history of the apartment? Are you near conveniences such as public transportation, grocery store, other shops, eateries? They will give you the full investigative report as if you were there. So again, for peace of mind, that $79 is going towards really good use. So definitely, if you go to our website, offcampus.bu.edu, you will find a link. On each listing that you open up, there'll be a little button that says, can't visit the property in person, have Squeakly look at it for you, your eyes and ears. So definitely check that out.
You know, Kim, that's a great point, because I often hear from parents as well that, you know, they don't necessarily know the neighborhood in which their son or daughter wants to move. So if a parent were willing to pay for this, they could find out all the ins and outs of that neighborhood, of the apartment, of the building. So it would be well worth it, and a parent's peace of mind, it's absolutely worth it.
Exactly.
Speaking of neighborhoods and parents, Christy, I know a lot of parents also are concerned that when daughters and sons and daughters move off campus, why doesn't the Boston University shuttle bus take my son and daughter right up to my front door? Kim, why is that?
Well, you're off campus. You're off campus.
You forfeit certain
services,
and services and amenities that Boston University offers to its priority, which are our residential students on campus.
Right. And that, I'm glad you bring that up, because some students and parents, they'll contact my office and I'll talk with them, and they want us to intervene if they're having a dispute with the landlord, or they want us to help negotiate the lease. I can't do that. That's all out of the purview of the university. You're trying to enter into, or you're already in, a private contract with someone that's outside of BU. I can give you some advice. I can give you some resources. I can put you in touch with some lawyers, absolutely. But I can't, and none of us here can actually intervene, because it's you're outside of BU, unfortunately. You're outside of the BU bubble. And
so recommendations, advice, encouragement, resources, but you cannot advocate.
Right.
On behalf of the
right. I can't go to court with you, to small claims court. I can't advocate for you. So,
Excellent point. There are legal resources available to students as well?
Yep. We have a legal aid resource sheet in our office, or I can email it to you on a case-by-case basis and put you in touch with some folks. We don't necessarily endorse any particular company or entity. However, through the grapevine, if I get some really good feedback about a particular person or company, I'll just happen to highlight that by word of mouth with a student or parent that asks for it. Yeah.
What if a parent or a student, after they've heard this broadcast or have had a conversation with son or daughter, wants either further information or would like their son and daughter come and speak to a university adult or professional? Does your office offer those services as well, to do a one-on-one?
Absolutely. You don't even need to make an appointment with me. You could just walk in. You could call if I'm not available. One of our student employees, they've all been trained up to the point where I think they're better at answering off-campus questions than I am. But certainly, you know, our staff can help you. I will help you. And as I said, you could just walk in, and I'm happy to you know, give you some pointers, some advice.
That's great, Kim. Thank you.
No problem.
Tell us how they go about finding you, your office,
where I am,
location, and website and phone number.
That would be helpful. Yep. So the website, again, it's offcampus, all one word, .bu.edu. My phone number, it's 617-353-3523. And then our office is located in Kenmore Square at 19 Deerfield Street, up on the 3rd floor. We're right next to the U.S. Post Office, or another way to look at it, we're right across from 100 Bay State Road.
The Yawkey Center for
Student Services, right across the street from there.
Good.
Trying to get me. Oh, and my email address. If you want to contact me directly, my email is ksanto, KSANTO @bu.edu.
Did you live on campus for 4 years, or did you move off when you were a student?
I stayed on for all 4 years. I only went off for a sublet for one summer. It was in between junior and senior year, and then I became an RA for my senior year. But my brother, who is a fellow BU alum, we're 12 years apart, he was one of the pioneers, and he went off campus his sophomore year to Alston. And his GPA kind of tumbled a little bit. He's a very successful businessman now, doing very, very well. But he gave me some humble advice when I went off to BU in 1996. He said, Kim, never move off campus. And I took that to heart. So my humble advice is to stay on campus, but if you really want to go off campus, for whatever your reasons are, it's usually to be with friends, is to just make sure you're well informed. And if you have any doubt, something doesn't seem right, contact me, contact our office, and we'll be happy to give you some information that will make you more informed renter.
Very, very, very well said. You know, I think that if we have painted a picture of off-campus is horrible, that is not our intent.
Right.
Because there are, to be fair, there are many, many fine establishments, fine residences, fine homes, fine realtors, and accommodations where not only hundreds and thousands of Boston University students live, but hundreds of thousands of other students from all the schools and colleges, public and private, within the greater Boston area do reside. But as Kim pointed out, we want you to be smart, we want you to do your homework, we want you to educate yourself, and we want you to take the time to examine where this pretty large decision and move will take you. Because we don't want anyone to become a victim either of a scam or to rent some place that you didn't think was all it was supposed to be. And we hear it, I can guarantee that we hear it every single semester and every single year of some sort of scam problem or fraudulent activity or a unfortunate bad experience, and then everyone's trying to scramble to find either places on campus or new accommodations after they're out some money.
Right. And during move-in weekend, what's great is, specifically here, if you're moving into Alston, they will have inspectional service inspectors from Inspectional Services Department walk out in the neighborhood. There'll be an information tent where if you go to move in and there is something so wrong with the apartment, or this isn't the unit that I was shown, why was I given these keys? Any sort of serious problem, an inspector will walk back with you, check it out, have a chat with the landlord, and then hopefully things can get turned around in a timely fashion. So you're not alone during move-in weekend. That's what's wonderful.
That is good to know.
And that's because of the great partnership that we have with the city of Boston.
And you've worked very hard at that.
Yes.
Developing that great partnership.
We all have,
What final, I know we're running out of time, but what final last-minute advice or suggestions or resources that you can let the parents know about? Is there anything that we're missing?
Again, the best resource is going to our website, offcampus.bu.edu, calling my office, 617-353-3523. Also on our website, under resources, we have links to city resources. So City of Boston Inspectional Services that I mentioned, Town of Brookline, fire safety, police, utilities, furniture rentals. That's what I was forgetting.
Furniture.
Yes. Yeah, because if you can either buy your own furniture or there's rental packages through a couple different companies that we have on our website. So there's a lot of resources out there.
Sounds like a ton of information.
Yeah.
Again, you got to take the time to do your homework.
Yeah.
And
have to research
secure all
it.
that. Because if you don't rent the furniture, and that is a viable option, you have to buy it here or buy it from home, ship it, move it in. No one's going to move it in other than your mom and dad for you, or all of your buddies or girlfriends.
And for the love of all that you hold sacred, during move-in weekend, if you see a couch on the side of the road, don't take it because it might have bed bugs.
Or many other things.
Exactly. Do not take the free furniture off the sidewalk.
So the Alston Christmas isn't all
cracked
up to me.
Yeah.
There's something called Alston Christmas in commemoration of the Alston neighborhood, and August 31st is when I'm not making this up, tens of thousands of units are turned over within 24 hours, and September 1 is the day that new students move in, while August 31st is the date that folks move out. And to be frank, people throw a lot of stuff away.
The
Yeah.
Dumpsters
sidewalks.
are overflowing.
Yeah.
Sidewalks are full.
Yeah.
Walkways are congested,
Mhm.
and students, instead of buying or renting something, they'll see a bed or a dresser or a couch on the sidewalk or in someone's front lawn,
Mhm.
and they think that they just won the lottery. And little do they know, could they be infested with any number of things that we won't want to discuss here.
Absolutely. Oh, and one last thing, during moving weekend, if you rent a truck, don't assume that you'll be able to park it in front of the building that you're moving into. There will be more information posted on either our Facebook page, which I forgot about our Facebook page, and also on our website about getting a permit from the city of Boston that you can actually park on a specific street with the unit you're moving into. So that's another important detail. I don't have all the info, but we usually post that closer over the summer months to move-in day. So.
Kim, Santo, we are enormously grateful and so appreciative of you coming
Thank
back
you
to
for
us.
having me. I hope
Thank
this was
you.
helpful.
The 1 hour went very, very quickly,
Yes, it
and we
did.
appreciate you tuning in. And best wishes to all, and happy holidays. For a
Yes,
successful
happy
holiday.
holidays.
Thank you. We'll see you again.
Bye.
Thank you.